Eala's Manila fan meet sells out Glorietta in minutes.
Wow, guys. So wala pang 2 hours is fully redeemed na lahat ng tickets.
That is the sentence echoing across Filipino tennis social media tonight, just 48 hours before a single fan has even walked through the doors. But is it actually true? On Wednesday, July 15th, 2026, Eala is set to appear at the Glorietta Activity Center in Makati City. There are no tickets for sale. Globe Telecom, the company that partnered with Eala years before she became an international tennis star, announced the event as completely free and open to the public. Registration begins at 4 p.m. The main program starts at 6 p.m. and organizers were still finalizing entry details only days earlier. Technically, nothing has been sold. Yet the phrase, Glorietta sold out in minutes, continues to spread because everyone understands what it truly means. It isn't about ticket sales. It's about demand. It means that a 21-year-old athlete who was ranked outside the world's top 100 only a year ago is now capable of drawing an entire nation to a shopping mall simply by showing up. That is the real story. 6 days before Wednesday's fan event, Eala walked off center court at Wimbledon after becoming the first Filipina in history to reach the round of 16 of a Grand Slam singles tournament. Her remarkable run ended with a hard-fought 4-6, 6-4, 3-6 defeat to Italy's Jasmine Paolini, but the result only strengthened her growing reputation on the world stage. Just 2 days later, she boarded a flight home. On Sunday, July 12th, she arrived at Ninoy Aquino International Airport Terminal 3, where what should have been a routine airport arrival quickly transformed into a celebration. Hundreds of supporters filled the terminal, while Philippine Olympic Committee President Abraham "Bambol" Tolentino personally welcomed her home. That reception belonged to the airport. Wednesday belongs to the country. For much of 2026, tennis insiders have been asking an interesting question about Eala, and surprisingly, it has very little to do with her tennis ability. The question is no longer whether she can defeat elite players. She has already answered that by defeating 7 top 10 opponents, including defending Wimbledon champion Iga Swiatek in one of the biggest victories of her career. Eala stunned the Polish star 7-6, 11-9, 6-2 on center court, proving she belongs among the game's elite. Instead, the real question is whether one young athlete can carry the expectations of an entire nation without allowing those expectations to become overwhelming. Because that weight is real. Players who have represented entire regions have spoken openly about it. Ons Jabeur has described the unique responsibility of carrying the hopes of North Africa, explaining that national expectations create a different kind of pressure from ordinary competition. Filipino supporters have created similar moments throughout Eala's season. Their passion has occasionally surprised tournament organizers, with crowds far larger than anticipated. During the Australian Open earlier this year, Novak Djokovic was asked about the growing number of Filipino fans following Eala from court to court. He smiled and called it a good problem to have. It was a diplomatic answer. The honest truth is more complicated. Representing an entire country is both a privilege and a responsibility. Every victory becomes a national celebration. Every defeat feels deeply personal to millions of people watching at home. That is why Wednesday's fan meet matters. Beneath the viral headlines about Glorietta selling out lies a much bigger question. Can Eala embrace the love of an entire nation while continuing to grow as a tennis player without letting those expectations consume her? To understand Wednesday, you have to look at the 5 months that came before it. Start with Wimbledon. Standing across the net was defending champion Iga Swiatek, the world number 3. Center court. 3rd round. Saturday afternoon in London. Eala played one of the finest matches of her career, surviving an unforgettable first-set tiebreak 11-9 before dominating the second set 6-2 to complete one of the tournament's biggest upsets. Afterward, during an interview with ABS-CBN, she revealed something surprisingly simple. Her team had secretly designed a new graphic for her racket bag without telling her. "I was actually surprised," she said with a smile. "They made this. They showed it to me. It was a small moment, but it revealed something important. Minutes after producing the biggest victory of her career on the sport's most famous court, she was still genuinely delighted by a thoughtful surprise from her team. That humility has become one of the defining characteristics of Eala's rise. Although her Wimbledon run ended in the round of 16 against Jasmine Paolini, she returned home with the best Grand Slam result of her career, significant prize money, and even greater international recognition. More importantly, she returned to a country that had been cheering for her long before the rest of the tennis world knew her name. And Wimbledon was never an isolated breakthrough. It was simply the latest chapter in an extraordinary season. Back in January, Eala headlined the inaugural Philippine Women's Open at the Rizal Memorial Tennis Center, the first WTA tournament ever staged on Philippine soil. In February and March, she traveled to Dubai and reached the quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships, where every one of her matches sold out. Not metaphorically. Actually sold out. After facing Eala, Grand Slam champion Coco Gauff remarked, "I've played this tournament for many years, and to see the stadium full, it means a lot." She wasn't referring to her own popularity. She was talking about Eala's growing fan base. Then came Indian Wells. Front Office Sports reported that several thousand spectators stayed until nearly midnight to watch Eala compete in a second-round match on Stadium 3. Even her practice sessions attracted crowds comparable to those gathering around Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner, and Venus Williams on neighboring courts. That kind of attention cannot be manufactured. It has to be earned. And over the course of 2026, Eala has earned it one match at a time. Back in Melbourne this January, Eala's opening round match was scheduled on one of the tournament's smaller courts. Organizers underestimated the level of interest she would generate. Fans packed every available seat, lined the fences surrounding the court, and crowded every viewing angle they could find just to catch a glimpse of her match. That wasn't an isolated moment. It was part of a pattern that has defined her entire 2026 season. And that's what people are really referring to when they say, Glorietta sold out in minutes. Whether they realize it or not, they're describing months of growing momentum, not a ticket sale. Take a step back for a moment. Think about what has happened to Philippine tennis in just 6 months. In January, the Philippines hosted its first ever WTA tournament. By July, one of its own had become the first Filipina in history to reach the round of 16 at a Grand Slam. That isn't a normal progression. It's the story of a country and an athlete accelerating together at remarkable speed in a sport with more than a century of history. And that's exactly why Wednesday's event means far more than an ordinary fan meet. On paper, it isn't even a sporting event. It's simply a public appearance inside Glorietta Mall. Registration opens at 4 p.m. The program begins at 6 p.m. No tickets. No draw. No scoreboard. Yet anyone who sees Ayala Avenue that evening will understand immediately that this is something much bigger. The reason isn't clever marketing. The reason is expectation. Filipino sports journalist TJ Manitok captured that feeling perfectly when he said the country has been searching for its next sporting icon ever since Manny Pacquiao's prime. When Pacquiao fought, roads emptied. Restaurants paused service. Families gathered around televisions. For a few hours, the entire country seemed to move together. That level of national attention doesn't happen often. And many Filipinos now believe Eala could become the next athlete capable of creating that kind of shared national moment. That's what Wednesday represents. It isn't the country discovering Eala. It's Eala discovering just how deeply her country has already embraced her. The tennis world has been acknowledging that reality for months. Novak Djokovic described the growing Filipino crowds as a good problem to have. Andy Roddick praised Eala's rise on his podcast, saying she represents exactly the kind of story the sport needs. Tournament executives have welcomed the surge in attendance surrounding her matches, recognizing the excitement she brings wherever she plays. After her victory over Iga Swiatek at Wimbledon, congratulations poured in from across the sporting world, including tennis legends Billie Jean King, Venus Williams, and Maria Sharapova, Eala's childhood idol, as well as Catherine, Princess of Wales. That is extraordinary company for any player, especially one who is only 21 years old. The global tennis community has noticed. Now the Philippines is preparing to celebrate her in person. And the timing couldn't be more important. Just 12 days after the Glorietta fan meet, Eala is scheduled to return to competition at the Wimbledon City DC Open in Washington, a WTA 500 event that begins the North American hardcourt swing. From there, she'll head to the Canadian Open, Cincinnati, and finally the US Open, the year's final Grand Slam. Those tournaments will determine rankings. Wednesday determines something entirely different. It is about confidence. It is about connection. It is about a nation reminding one of its brightest young athletes that she carries its support wherever she competes next. That support didn't exist at this scale a year ago. Over the course of one remarkable season, it has been built piece by piece. It started with the Philippine Women's Open. It grew through Dubai. It became impossible to ignore at Indian Wells. It expanded during Berlin. It exploded at Wimbledon. And now it arrives home, inside a shopping mall just a few kilometers from where Eala grew up. Of course, none of this changes the fact that her last competitive match ended in defeat. Her Wimbledon campaign concluded with a hard-fought 3-set loss to Jasmine Paolini, 4-6, 6-4, 3-6. That's a real result. A real disappointment. And like every elite athlete, Eala will use it as motivation. What matters is that her return flight had already been booked. She was always coming home. She simply didn't know whether she would return as a third-round player, a fourth-round player, or something even greater. She came home as the first Filipina ever to reach the Wimbledon round of 16. The airport welcomed her. On Wednesday, the country will welcome her again. Because the celebration was never only about winning. It was about what she represents. Which brings us back to the sentence that started it all. Eala's Manila fan meet sells out Glorietta in minutes. Taken literally, it isn't accurate. Nothing was sold. There were no tickets. No online countdown. No checkout page. Just a free public event. Registration beginning at 4 p.m., a stage ready at 6 p.m., and thousands of people expected to gather for one reason, to celebrate a young woman who has inspired an entire nation. So perhaps the better way to say it is this: nothing was sold. Yet everything was already spoken for. The crowd had made its decision long before Wimbledon. Long before the airport welcome. Long before Wednesday. It happened during Miami. It grew in Dubai. It echoed through Indian Wells. It reached another level in Berlin. And it became impossible to ignore on center court at Wimbledon. By the time Eala steps onto the stage in Makati, the scores that changed her career will already be etched into the memories of the people waiting for her. They'll remember the unforgettable tiebreak. They'll remember the upset. Most of all, they'll remember the name. Once, it belonged to a promising young tennis player from Manila. Today, it belongs to an entire nation. Eala belongs on center court. She belongs at Glorietta. And on Wednesday evening, those two worlds come together in one unforgettable moment. The next chapter begins soon. Washington. The North American hardcourt swing. The US Open. But before all of that, it begins with a homecoming that never needed a ticket because the people who planned to be there had already made their decision long ago.